I've got a bin full of Japanese Super Nintendo games, and I'm going to show you every single one of them. I have so many Super Famicom games, and this is actually a bit coincidental because we are celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Japanese release of the Super Nintendo. Although actually here came out in 1992. It's a fine shooter that came out for the Super Famicom. I believe it switches up the different modes of gameplay. So you're it's a shooter, but sometimes it's vertically scrolling, sometimes you're behind the ship. Yeah, it's fine. I actually don't like it that much. Next we come to, let me change the light so you get a better view here. Here we get Super Contra, known as Contra Spirits in Japan. This is a fantastic game. Can't recommend it enough. I think the Japanese version's only $10 or so if you're getting it loose. And that is, of course, if you're getting it in the it's not quite junk condition. It's perfectly playable. But you can see here, and there's the yellowing of the plastic. And this, I'm told, is just what happens to certain plastic as time goes on, as it oxidizes. It's perhaps a fire retardant, maybe. That's something I've heard on the internet. You'll notice it doesn't happen with all cartridges. I think Super Contra should be about the same age as Axley here, but you'll notice that Axley's fine, and it seems to happen to the same game, just when you line up. If I had 10 copies of Contra Spirits, and I don't know why I would, if you lined them all up, most, if not all of them, would have the same back. It's just something to do with this particular run of plastics. I don't know what's going on with it. I've got a few other games that I can probably show it to you on. It happens to a bunch of Super Nintendo games in Japan. Here we have Rockman and Forte, which is Mega Man and Bass. I actually haven't really sunk my teeth into this one yet. I really want to sit down and go through all of the Rockman X games, including Mega Man 7. Yeah, 7's the one that came out for the Super Famicom. Here we have Cho Makai Mura. This is Super Ghosts and Goblins, or there's the other one. It's Ghouls and Ghosts and Goblins and Ghosts. It's one of those. It's the Super Nintendo version. It's still very hard, and I wouldn't recommend it if you actually want to beat it. I don't know if you'll be able to do that despite how much time you put into it. Here we've got the Japanese version of Donkey Kong Country 3. Donkey Kong Country has become much maligned in recent years, but I love them. I have all three of them for the Super Nintendo in America, and I love every single one of them. I especially have fond memories of being in the 4th grade when I borrowed it from the person who lived next to me when I used to live in Alabama. That was a weird time. Next we have The Adventures of the Rocketeer. My dad loves the Rocketeer movie. He has lots of different memorabilia. For one Christmas, I actually bought him a complete in-box copy of this, and then I just bought it for myself because it was the one game for the Super Nintendo that my dad had, was the American version of the Rocketeer. And you'll notice on this copy, it also has that similar yellowing on the back of the cartridge. And notice it's not uniform. It's you've got the half and half. The front half is perfectly fine, but the back half has started to yellow, and I wonder what it's going to look like in 10 years. I don't know what the time scale on this kind of stuff is. Super fascinating to look at it. Here we've got Kirby Super Deluxe. This is Kirby 4, I want to say, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, I've not actually put this into the system yet. I really want to play this. I do love how it has the Mega cartridge connectors. I think for basic Super Nintendo games, you have very short connectors into the system, but I think it's the games with the special chips that they have these massive teeth to them for you to put them into the system. And that's actually a trick that I'll often do is if you're cheap and you don't want to pay the $30 for the cartridge adapter, you can actually switch out the motherboards of games from their Super Nintendo to their Super Famicom cartridge, but you have to make sure that it has the right spaces. So when I was trying to play Super Mario RPG in English, I had to swap it out with a Star Fox cartridge that was Japanese. Here we have Gundam Wing Endless Duel. This is a really fun game. There's not much of a single player to it, but I think the best way I can describe it as a Street Fighter game, only your Gundams. that's it. I think you do have you can shoot a laser. I had a lot of fun playing that game. But I didn't put a lot of time into it just because there's not a whole lot you can do with it. Especially if you're, just playing it by yourself. Here we have Bishojo Senshi Sailor Moon. This is the side-scrolling beat-em-up that came out for the Super Famicom in 1993. It's very fun, very Streets of Ragey, Final Fighty. Highly recommended. I played through it once, so I can't remember many specifics about it, but it was very cool. Then we have Cho Genjing. This is Super Bonk. It's the Bonk series made the jump from the PC Engine to the Super Nintendo. This came out, 1994? So if they've got a copyright for 1989, does that mean it's sort of like an upgraded port of the original Bonk, or is it its own thing? Someone in the comments is going to have to tell me, because I actually haven't put this in the system yet. Which is something I'll be saying about a lot of these games. Here we go. What is this? It's like Hagane Tetsu no Kishi 2. It's like Warriors of Steel. Knights of Steel, actually. Rommel's Army of the Desert. This, I bought it, you can see I bought it like a book off or a hard off for $2. This is a tank strategy game. I put a little bit of time into it. The thing about strategy games from the early to mid 1990s is that the strategy games today are going to be a lot better. A lot of this was technology dependent. And you can use the Super Famicom mouse. I actually have my Super Famicom mouse upstairs that I have for use with my copy of Mario Paint, but I guess I can use it with that. And then here we go. Here is Hagane. This is a notoriously expensive game in the United States. I've heard people say that it was only available at Blockbuster, but then I saw a very good video on the situation was saying that's all hearsay. This was actually available at real retailers. And now it's like a $200 or $300 cartridge in America, but the Japanese copy is $50. I think I bought this at Mandarake in Fukuoka. I will say that it is the most money I've spent on a game that I still have not been able to clear the first level. It is really hard. And if you're up for a challenge, then go ahead. Great sprites, great action, but it is a tough game. Move that to the side. Next up, we have the first FZero. Look at that wall of text over there. This is the first adventure of our new hero, Captain Falcon. FZero is an amazing racing game. Actually, now celebrating, it came out November 1990. This month, we are celebrating FZero's 30th anniversary, and we haven't had a game in the series since, the GameCube? Yeah, so maybe Nintendo, it would be nice if you would come out with a new F-Zero game, the Switch. Look, 2021, who knows what's going to happen. A Switch F-Zero game would be phenomenal. And it's like a launch game for the Super Nintendo. That's how much of a generational shift there was between the NES and the SNES. That you got a game like F-Zero. Here's Blazeon. This is a shooter for the Super Famicom, published by Atlas, by the way, and I think developed by that company AI there. Atlas has a weird history where in the early 1990s, they didn't develop, but they did publish a bunch of shooters for the PlayStation 1, Sega Saturn, and the Super Nintendo, and this is one of them. I haven't put this in the system yet. I bought that as I was leaving Japan, so I just haven't been able to get around to it yet. And then here's Kirby's Dreamland 3. 1997, a 1997 game for the Super Famicom. Remember, in 1996, the N64 released both in Japan and America. So to have a game come out in 1997 isn't that the most Kirby thing you can do, considering that the first console Kirby game came out in 1990 or 1991, well after the Super Famicom had been out. But hey, it's Kirby, so you can't go wrong with Kirby. Most of the Kirby games are good. Is there a bad Kirby game? I don't think so. Final Fantasy IV. This is the one Final Fantasy that I don't have completed box, and I really wish I did, because I played this for the Game Boy Advance, and Final Fantasy IV might be my favorite Final Fantasy. It's really tough. It has the sprites and the graphics, and the story is phenomenal. God, this is such a good game. If you haven't played it and you like RPGs, I cannot recommend Final Fantasy IV highly enough. On the opposite end, we've got Breath of Fire. This is the original Super Famicom cartridge. You can see it's got some yellowing on the back as well. I do not like Breath of Fire. I didn't like playing it. I thought it was a bit repetitive, and I just did not enjoy it. That is my Breath of Fire that I am spitting. And we'll also quickly go over Breath of Fire 2. I believe Breath of Fire 1 and 2 are fairly expensive in North America, but Japanese copies, you can find them complete for $20 maximum. And remember when Capcom? Yeah, Capcom was doing some weird stuff in the mid-90s with their RPGs. But Breath of Fire, they got what, up to 5 or 6? I know they came out with a couple for the PlayStation. Front Mission Gun Hazard. I'm pretty sure, no, because there was Front Mission, which is an RPG. I'm 90% sure it's Gun Hazard that is this awesome sort of like RPG action platformer. Oh no, gross. That is really fun, very playable, never got localized. It was a 1996 Squaresoft game. That's when Squaresoft, they were making the transition from the Super Nintendo to the PlayStation, and a lot of games got lost. A bunch of games just weren't seen as being worth localizing because it was going to cost a lot of money, and by the time they were finished localizing, the PlayStation was going to be out, and Square didn't want to have anything to do with the Super Famicom at that point. This is a very cheap game. You can see here, I bought it at a hard off for 100 yen. Put a couple of hours into this. Very good game. You sort of like level up and you can customize you're in a mech that walks around. It's awesome. Here we've got Mario Paint. This is, you've got to use the mouse if you actually want to play this game well. I've put a little bit of time into it. It's got a couple of cool mini games with it. I do like the sound synthesizer with it. I think a lot of people have done some really cool things on YouTube with this. But Mario Paint, very fun, very innovative. I think was really showing Nintendo doing weird stuff back in the early 90s. Here is Super Mario Yoshi's Island. This is a 1995 game, the sequel to Super Mario World. This is a little bit pricey in America, but in Japan, I think it's like a $2, $3 game if you can find it at hard off. Maybe $10 complete. If you're in Tokyo, it's $20. It's very fun. There's really no other Mario game like it. And if you like almost hand-painted sprites, if you want the apex of 2D graphics for the Super Nintendo, and dare I say, of all time, you got to play Yoshi's Island. So it's been 12 minutes, and I've only been about halfway through all of these cartridges. So I'm going to take a little break. I need to go get a glass of water. That's just been a small chunk of my Super Famicom collection. I haven't even gotten to the boxes yet, but I'm going to take a little break. I'll see you in the next video. I've been your man out of Japan, Jay Contra. Thanks for watching, and mahalo.